Hi everyone. I wanted to demonstrate a weaving project to you because weaving is something that has lots of texture, and normally we would use fibers for this, fibers like yarn or fabrics or ribbons, but I'm going to show you how to weave with paper. And some of you may already know this, and this is not a project that you have to do. This is a suggestion for you, but I actually have two papers here. Okay, so I'm going to set one aside, and I'm going to start this first one with some warm colors. Now I'm doing a warm color paper and a cool color paper, and so I chose three warm colors. I did not choose yellow. I got a red, an orange, and a pink. Pink is made with red, so that makes it a warm color. And I thought the yellow wouldn't show up as well, so I left yellow out. But I'm going to start by just quickly getting some kind of design on my paper. I love spirals, so I am doing this kind of spirally pattern, and you saw how quickly that went. So I've done my red, and now I'm going to do it again with pink, and I'll just, hello orange. It'll just kind of fill in those places that were not filled by the red yet. Okay, so there's my pink layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab orange now. And it's really kind of a yellow orange, so it's a lighter one. And I'm going to finish creating my first paper. Kind of fill in those corners and look for places that didn't get anything. So this is one paper that I'm going to use. Now it just so happens that I had already done my cool paper earlier. So I have a warm color paper and a cool color paper. I'm going to put the cool color paper away again, and I'm going to take my warm color paper and fold it in half so that the marker is on the inside. Now I should have said earlier that I used marker, but you could use crayon, you could use paint, it's up to you. I just chose marker because it's dry and it's quick. Okay, so what I'm going to do on this side of my paper where nobody will see but me is I'm going to go about 2 finger widths away, and I'm going to draw myself a light line that nobody but me can see. Okay, and that is on the edge of the paper that opens, and that's really important. You want to make sure that this line that you draw, it's about 2 fingers away from the edge, and it's on the edge of the paper that opens. Okay, and then from there I'm going to draw a few lines. They should be about 2 finger widths apart from that first line that I drew to this folded edge. Okay, now I drew this with a yellow marker. You can see it nice and bright, but you could use a pencil for that. And then just make sure before you do any cutting, make sure that this line is close to the edge and that these lines touch the fold. Okay, because our next step is to take our scissors, sorry about the light, that's a little better. Take our scissors and we're going to cut from the folded edge to the first line that we drew. We are not cutting all the way across. We are cutting from the folded edge of the paper to the first line that we drew. Okay, and if I open this, there's just going to be like a slit, but it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that. So these are all cut. You can see when I open it up, there are cuts that are in the middle of the paper, but they do not make it all the way to the edge. So my paper doesn't have any cut edges. Okay, now I'm going to set that one aside. We would call this our warp paper, or we could also call it our loom when we're weaving. So I'm going to set it aside, warp or loom. Okay. And I'm going to take out this other paper, my cool colored paper, and I really don't want to mark this paper because that just takes extra time. But I am going to turn it over, and I'm going to cut pieces that are about, that's more than 2 finger widths, but that are about 2 finger widths apart from each other. Okay, just gonna cut a few pieces. Actually, I'm gonna cut all the way across. Okay, now I have these in a stack, and that's kind of important because they're in order. They're in the order that they were when I cut them. So now what I'm going to do is open my loom paper back up, or my warp. These are my weft pieces, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and flip them over, and I want to weave these into this. Now, some of you may have done this before, and that's awesome if you have. But let me show you. See how this paper is doing the same thing as that, right? So I'm going to go ahead and weave this in. And when I weave, I'm going to go under, over, under, over, under, over. Every time I came to a cut in my paper, I changed the direction of this piece, okay? Now the next piece that I weave in, I'm going to start the opposite way. This one I started by going under, so this one I have to start by going over. So I'll go over, under, over, under, over, under, and then I push it over as far as I can. Okay, now you could cut these pieces thinner if you wanted to. My pieces are cut pretty thick. That's okay. My pieces are cut pretty thick, and so I won't have a lot of weaving to do. But now I've done both of the ways I'm going to weave. I've started by going under, and I've started by going over. So now this is a pattern. So when I do the third one, it's going to be the same as my first one. I'll start by going under, okay? Under, over, and then I'll push it over, and one more paper to weave in, probably one, maybe two, but it's going to be tight over here. So now this is my fourth paper, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the even numbers, 2 and 4, are going to start the same way. So I started 2 by going over, so I'm going to start 4 by going over, okay, over, then under, and it's getting tighter because there's not as much room for me to move over here, over, under, over, under, push it together as much as you can. Now I have papers left over here, and it's possible that I could fit in one more if I cut it down narrower. I might be able to get it in there, so I'll try. And since I just started by going over, I would have to start by going under this time. Okay. All right, so I have woven in as much as I possibly can, and it's pretty cool because it kind of changes from warm colors to cool colors as it goes across. And so my last step now, and I just brought my bottle of glue, my last step after I've gotten everything in is to lift up the end, put a little glue on it, and stick it down. Okay, I'm going to do that across the top and the bottom. on the front and on the back. But you'll be able to see how the weaving will stay in place just because of the way it's put together. The things are woven over, under, and that makes them tighter together. Now, this is something that could also be done with yarn and ribbons, but paper is something that I'm hoping you have at home, and so it's a really good way to start weaving. So I hope you enjoy, and you could add more to this when you were done if you wanted to add glitter or sequins or something fun. You could stick it on there, but if not, then you have finished. You can call yourself a weaver. Awesome.